Welcome, everyone. This is the DFS Bum. All right, Thursday night showdown here. We have the LA Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. So before we get into the game, just a couple things here, real quick. I was just looking at the upcoming calendar here, and it's pretty exciting. Starting off Thursday. So Thursday we'll have ourselves a little NFL showdown slate. Friday we get the day off. But then Saturday we have two NFL games, so I'll do a video for those. Of course, Sunday we have the NFL. Monday we will have the NFL showdown slate, and then Tuesday the NBA starts up. And only two games that first night there. I know on Fanduel right now the main slate tournament is like I think it's like $1 million for first place. So I'll end up having a video out on that probably sometime this weekend or later this week. Wednesday, we have some more NBA, just a shit ton of games on that Wednesday. I think there's like 13. Thursday, Christmas Eve, the 24th, there's no games of any sort that day. And then Friday, we have an NFL game, just a one gamer. And of course, the NBA here on out until the playoffs every day. And then Saturday, there's three NFL games, and Sunday, and then the Monday, the 28th, I think is like our last Monday night showdown game. So there's just a lot of DFS going on here, and it is fucking exciting as hell. I'm kind of excited to have the NBA back. NFL, man, it can just be so brutal at times. I don't know, last night, the Monday night game, man, what a crazy freaking game that was. You know, I'm just battling to try to get first, was in first a couple different times. Went in between like $20,000 and $18,000, and then as you know, that game just was so bizarre. The second half, at one point on FanDuel, Baker Mayfield was in the top winning lineup, and he wasn't actually the high scorer at the MVP spot. And then the NFL showdown, I don't know if I've ever seen that on FanDuel. It can certainly happen on DraftKings with the salary multiplier, but that was bizarre. And then of course, Jackson got the cramps, and he came back in. And he threw that past Marquise Brown, which I then took first place again. It was a huge tie that was only like 600 some bucks. And then of course Kareem Hunt scored, and then the kicker with Tucker. Just what a crazy fucking game that was. But regardless, hey, it was exciting, and I suppose even though we might not come out on the winning side, at times it's still fun. And I guess we learn how to deal with those losses. So, all right, let's get into the game. And one last thing, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so, especially with all the games that we have coming up here. Would love for you to join the little journey here of DFS going on. So, all right, guys, let's go here, and we'll start off with the quarterbacks here Thursday night. Chargers and Raiders. Two pretty decent guys, Herbert and Derek Carr. Herbert, I'll have to admit, man, for a rookie, he's having just an amazing year. What a blessing it was that Tyrod Taylor got hurt there. Kind of a freak accident, if I remember, if he got hurt in warmups. Like, was that first or second game of the year? Looking back, and Herbert stepped right in and has done a pretty damn good job. So with him, he's coming in on FanDuel, price tag $16,000, $14,900 on DraftKings. He's a guy that certainly I'm going to have in some of my MVP spots for sure. Matchup going against the Raiders. They're 27th overall rate defense, so we like that. And then against opposing quarterbacks, they're 21st. So that is favorable with Herbert as well. Last 5 games, maybe he's starting to come down to earth a little bit the last couple weeks, but if we go back 5 games, his points have been 17, 6, 17, 28, and 22. And this is something also I forget. I'm working off of Draft Dashboard here. If you ever want to try it out, there's a deal. If you go in my video description or the show notes, you can see there's a link there. Just try it for $1 for a month. And I forget to mention this, particularly in the NFL, particularly when we have these inter-conference games, you can actually go down here and see also the last 5 times that they played their opponent. And so in this case, Herbert, he's a rookie, right? And so he'd already played them just once this year. And the last time they played, he had 23 points. So pretty solid outing against them. All right, and then going down to Carr. Carr, really, yeah, I think he, like there's a lot of talk with maybe his kind of career kind of maybe falling apart, and him, becoming kind of more of that backup sort of quarterback. But he's had a pretty good solid year here. Averaging about 18 points. He's coming in with a price tag of $15,000 on FanDuel, 13,500 on DraftKings. Chargers overall defense is 19, and against opposing quarterbacks, they're 23. So he's got a nice matchup there too. So I'm going to get him in some of that MVP spot as well. And I think one thing with this game is there's a lot of decent candidates for that MVP spot. So I think it should be a pretty fun slate to play. And one thing, just jumping back to Herbert real quick, I think I forgot to mention this. For the year, he's been averaging about 22 points. So I think out of everybody, he's actually averaging the most points. Let me just check it here real quick. And that's the thing with Fanduel is, with this draft dashboard. I use it as just my research tool when I do these videos, but there's just a lot of things with like lineup optimizers and mass lineup generators and things like that too. So it's always something. Maybe I'll do a specific video on it sometime. But let me just get back here with the high score. So yeah, Herbert is the high guy, averaging for the year, and then Carr's right behind him. So all right, let's take a look at some of the folks that these quarterbacks are going to be throwing to. We'll start off with the wide receivers here. And so we have Keenan Allen. And granted, it's I'm doing this video. It's Tuesday morning right now, and a couple of these guys are questionable. That's what the shading means, and some of them sat out practices Monday. But as of now, I'm expecting everybody to play, but always, of course, keep an eye out on that. So, all right, getting back to it here. Keenan Allen is 14,000 on FanDuel, coming in at 13,400 on DraftKings. He's going to be in some of those MVP spots for me. Matchup, again, anybody going against the Raiders overall, pretty decent matchup. And then positionally, the Raiders are 22nd against opposing receivers. So we add all that up together with a guy like Allen, who's been averaging 11 targets for the year, about 15 points. The last 5 weeks, his points have been 16, 7, 14, 27, and 11. So he's pretty darn consistent too. And then the last time he played the Raiders, he had 21 points. So yeah, there's a lot to like there with Allen. Going down next in line here is Aguilar, coming over from Philly to the Raiders here and putting together a pretty decent year. He's coming with a price tag of $10,500 on FanDuel, $9,900 on DraftKings. The matchup for the Raiders receivers is a little bit tougher. Chargers are 13th positionally there. So, like I say, a little bit tougher. Now, getting back with Aguilar here, averaging for the year about 5 targets, almost 10 points. The last 5 weeks for him, points have been 19, 6, 8, 18, 1. And then the Chargers, last time they played, he had 13 points. So you can see with him, he's a little bit up and down. I guess that's Aguilar, though, right? I'm sure you Philly fans are probably have mixed feelings with him. Whenever I hear his name, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. There's a hilarious clip of this guy in Philly. There was a apartment fire, and they literally like threw like this baby out of the apartment, and this guy like caught it. And they're interviewing him, and he throws shade at Aguilar. Aguilar, he's like, "Yep, they threw the baby out the window." He's like, "I caught it, unlike Aguilar today." But it was fucking hilarious. So I think it's on YouTube. But anyway, back to the game here. So coming in here, Keenan Allen's running mate, Mike Williams. Williams had a pretty solid year, I feel. Just a little bit younger receiver, just a physical beast. 10,000 on FanDuel, 9,000 on DraftKings. And one thing I'll back up to with Aguilar, I don't think on FanDuel I'm going to put him in my MVP spots, but with that price tag and being low like that, that's a guy that I would consider it on DraftKings with the salary multiplier. Same thing with Mike Williams. I don't think I'm probably going to throw him in my FanDuel lineups, but again, with him being cheaper, that's a guy too on DraftKings if you want some guys that are probably going to be a little bit lesser owned in that MVP spot. So getting back here with Williams, 5.5 targets for the year, about 8.5 points. Him, I think maybe he didn't play last week. I think he might have been banged up. Before that, his points 6, 4, 15, and 5. Last time he played, the Raiders had 11 points. So you probably think to some degree that he's due for a big game. I mean, the matchup's in his favor. He's had a couple subpar games there. So anyhow, that's a guy, and I don't know, maybe he might make it into a MVP lineup of some sort. I mean, the thing I like about him is he's just such a big guy, and he could easily bust out a huge play and get you a touchdown. So that would be something that I want to completely write him off. Speaking of big plays, going back here with Aguilar's running mate, we have Henry Ruggs, rookie. And I suppose he's had an okay year. About 3.5 targets, 6 points. If we go back with him, the last 5 weeks, his production 3, 14, 7, 2, and 5. And really, that 14-point game, if you guys remember back, that was when they were playing the Jets. And yeah, I think it got the coordinator, the coach, fired where they did the all-out blitz, basically, last play of the game. And Ruggs, a speedster, just flat out fucking burned his guy, and Carr hit him up, and they won the game as basically the last second play. So he basically, on that play, I mean, I think it was a good maybe, I don't know, at least a 50-yard catch probably. And then when you add on the points for the reception and the touchdown, I mean, shit, you got that 14 points. I probably hazard a guess about 11 to 12 of those points were just on that one play. So keep that in mind with him. 8,000 on Fanduel, so I like his price there. 7,100, but I can't see him, for me, being into the MVP spot. It certainly would be the contrarian play, but I just don't think it's warranted. Last time he played the Chargers, he only had a point. So from here, we're going to probably starting to fall off. I guess the last couple guys worth mentioning here before we really fall off is guys like Hunter Renfrow. He's coming in with a price tag of $7,500 on FanDuel, $1,700 less on DraftKings, averaging about 5 targets for the year and 7 points. With him, last 5 weeks, his production 4, 7, 11, 5, and 4. So a little bit limited. And earlier this year, he played the Chargers. When he played the Chargers, he had 7 points. You go back a couple years ago, he had a 20-point game. I think probably would have been last year. So, would that get you like the MVP spot, 20 points? Probably not in this game. So that to me, though, that's just too much of a leap to throw him in the MVP spot. But nonetheless, you can see he's capable. He's getting a lot of targets. If you like that, last 3 weeks, targets 7, 6, and 9. Out there for half the snaps. Usage rate 15% when he's out there, 14%. So yeah, he's definitely a guy to consider in the flex spots, particularly with the ability that will allow you to buy up and to get some of the studs, because there's certainly some studs in this game. Jalen Guyton is kind of more of the slot guy in the opposite side of the ball with the Chargers. He's coming in at the price tag of $7,000 on FanDuel, $5,000 on DraftKings. For the year, 3 targets and 5 points. The last 5 weeks with him is production 1, 5, 5, 1, and 4. And then when he played the Raiders earlier this year, only a point. So that's a guy right there. You could see, like, if it was a cash line or just doing a handful of lineups, he wouldn't be in my player pool. And guys like that he's out there 78% of the snaps, though. So when I get guys like that, when I'm making my lines, and I end up usually just making a shit ton of them, I'll usually go in and just try to make, maybe like say 5, 10 lineups with this guy, and then I'll just boot him out of the player pool, just so make sure I get a little exposure with him. And I just try to get some of the guys I don't like. I just try to get in a couple of those lineups right out of the way in the beginning, and then just I'm done with it, and I just don't really have to worry about them anymore. And then from here, I suppose they're worth talking about, particularly with Tyron Johnson. For the year, he's with the Chargers, no receiver there. Only about 2 targets and 5 points, but he did have a 15-point game last week and 7 targets. So, and I think that's probably with Mike Williams not playing. It would be my assumption. I can't remember the details on that game. But he's a guy, particularly if, let's say, Williams doesn't play again, you would certainly probably consider him with the price tag $6,500 in FanDuel. Another guy that's $5,000. In fact, on DraftKings, if that's primarily where you play, they basically have got the same salary. So I wouldn't play those two together, because the chances of them being in the same lineup are probably pretty rare to get the third and the fourth receiver like that. But you could certainly, with the salaries being the same, the idea between one of the two of them having a decent night, I think, is probably a pretty decent strategy. There. And then on FanDuel, their salaries are relatively close too. So that's probably what I'll do is when I mention taking a guy like Guyton and making my 5 to 10 lineups, I'll probably take Johnson too. And for the most part, I'll be able to make those same lineups. Maybe there'll be a couple things with Johnson, with him being a little bit cheaper on FanDuel, that I'll be able to make. But yeah, it's something to consider. Now, going back with Johnson too, last 5 games, his production 15, 1, 7, 6, and then he had 0 points 5 games ago. So I'm not even sure if he was even played that game or not. Last time they played the Raiders, he had 6 points. So yeah, certainly a guy to probably consider. And then from there, between Edwards, like Brian Edwards, Zay Jones, these other guys, I mean, they're really just getting a couple of targets and then maybe just a couple of points just between the two of them. So I really probably can't see those guys with the Raiders being in my player pool. I just don't think it warrants it. So, all right, moving on to the tight ends. Some pretty decent options here as well. So Darren Waller just having a monster year. Averaging 9 targets, about 13 points. He's got a nice matchup. The Chargers are 20th against opposing tight ends. So with him, he's a guy that, like I mentioned, I think there's a lot of MVP candidates, like really legit, solid MVP candidates for this game, which will make it exciting. So he's a guy for sure on DraftKings, 11,800. With him being lower compared to some of these other guys that we've talked about, and compared, some of the running backs that we will talk about, the salary. I mean, he's just got a price salary for his upside, or a great salary for the potential upside that he has. So, a nice matchup there too. So, I definitely like him. All right, we got Hunter Henry here, other side of the ball, coming in at 10,000 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DraftKings. A little bit tougher matchup for him. Raiders are 10th against opposing tight ends. That's one thing that they seem to do well at. Now, back with Hunter for the year, about 6.5 targets, 7.5 points. Production been a little bit up and down. So if we go back with him, the last 5 weeks, his production 7, 1, 10, 13, and 11. So he had a nice little string there, and then he kind of fell off. And yeah, unfortunate for me, I started him in my playoffs and my fantasy, my season long with my buddies I grew up with, and over Tanyan, and I regretted that. Robert Tanyan cost me the game, but nonetheless, Henry's just a guy just to consider. He'd easily get you a touchdown. He's involved. He's out there 87% of the snaps. And then from here, I don't really know with some of these guys like, say, Foster Moreau or Jason Witten. I mean, those guys are out there. Moreau, 25% of the snaps. Witten, 38% of the snaps, but the usage rate with Moreau is only 3%. Witten is only 4%. If you go back, those guys, between the both of them, they're averaging 1.5 targets for the year, about 4 points. Outside of them being cheap, I don't know. I can't really probably see myself taking that dive. And then opposite side of the ball, Parnham with the Chargers is kind of that same deal. He just doesn't really do that much production. So I think I'll probably just take those guys out of this pool, of my player pool. I just can't see it making sense. All right, running backs. So we have Austin Eckler, been banged up earlier this year, but been back the last couple weeks, playing pretty solid ball. Matchup there, 30th. The Raiders are horrible against the run. So Eckler is another guy. I'm going to throw him in some MVP lineups. The 13,500 on FanDuel, 13,400 on DraftKings. So guy you could potentially consider there. Maybe a little bit pricey on DraftKings compared to some of these other guys we talked about, but you definitely like the matchup and his upside. For the year, been carrying the ball about 12 times. Targets, about 7. We go back, I think he's been back 3 games now. But anyway, let's go back the last 3 weeks here. So carries, 15, 8, 14, targets, 9, 9, and 16. Points, we'll go back 5 games. 19, 9, 18, 2, 26. And it looked like the last time they played the Raiders, he was banged up and he didn't play. So from there, opposite side of the ball, we have Josh Jacobs. Jacobs been a little bit banged up, but he played last week, assuming he'll probably play again. 13,000 on FanDuel, 12,100 on DraftKings. Another guy throwing the MVP spot. For me, been averaging about 14 points. Matchup is a little bit tougher there. The Chargers are 14th. So Ekelar's definitely got a better matchup there, but Jacobs is out there just heavily involved in the offense, averaging 18 carries for the year, a little over 3 targets, like I mentioned, the 14 points. For him, the last 5 weeks, he had 9 points, and I think maybe 2 games ago he must have been hurt. There's a 0 there, but then he had 4, 13, and 28. So it's a guy to certainly consider. And then from here, it might get a little bit tougher trying to sort out what exactly is going to happen with the backups. I suppose you had Devontae Booker and I'm talking more like with Jacobs and the Raiders here. There's Devontae Booker and Jalen Richard. Both those guys look like they're out on the field 23% of the snaps. The usage rate, though, with Booker when he's out there is 50% versus Richard being 24%. Richard, I would look as being more of your kind of like scat back, third down back, the receiving option. But for the year, only 2 targets, about 2 carries, and about 3.5 points. He is 6,000 on Fanduel, 5,400 on DraftKings, so he's a little bit cheaper option. Now getting back up here to Booker. Booker's a guy where he'd end up having a couple of big games here. If we go back, actually, oh, wow, it's been a while. So with him, 6 carries, 1.5 targets, 5.5 points. Last 5 weeks, his production 3, 6, 1, 2, and 21. So with Ekelar back, it would be real easy to drop him out of the player pool, especially with him coming in at 8,500 in FanDuel, $8,000 on DraftKings. So that will probably be a guy that with him and Richard and Booker, same deal. I'll probably make maybe like 5 to 10 lineups with them just to kind of get a little exposure with them. And then I'm going to pair him up with guys that I deem low bust probability, and then just live with it. So now on the other side of the ball, there's Jackson and Ballage. And with Ekelar back, it probably looked like maybe Jackson is the odd man out. If we go back the last couple of weeks, it looks like, when Ekelar's been back, that you'd see Jackson kind of tail off. Price-wise, he's 7,500 on FanDuel, 6,700 on DraftKings. For the year, about 7 carries, 3 targets, 6 points. But if we go back here the last couple of weeks, carries 3 and 0, targets 3 and 0. Yeah, I guess he probably didn't even play that second game. Excuse me. So going back the games prior to that, well, I guess I'll just start back with the last 5 games. So at 3 points last week, then 0, 16, 8, and 12. And I think when he had 16, 8, and 12, I'm almost certain I don't think Ekelar played those weeks. Now, other side of the ball his running mate there, Ballage, 7,000 on FanDuel, 6,100 on DraftKings, so a little bit cheaper. If we go back the last couple of weeks with him, so his carries 7 and 7 versus Jackson. Well, I guess let's assume he didn't even play. So just last week, because we had all those running backs were healthy. So Ekelar ended up having, say, 15 carries, Ballage 7, then Jackson 3 targets. Ekelar had 9. Ballage had 2. I guess Jackson had 3 points. Jackson and Ballage both had 3. So, and prior to that, with the last 5 games, Ballage 3, 5, 0, 11, and 13. Now, something here, I guess I forgot to mention it the last time they played. Jacobs, I forgot to mention that. Last time he played the Chargers, he had 13 points. Booker also had 13 points. Looked like Jackson didn't score. Ballage had 15 points. And Richard only had 3 points there. So anyhow, again, for me, I'll probably just take those guys, make a few lineups, and try to just pair them up with the studs, and then just be done with it. And if I was only doing, like, say, cash lineups or just a handful of lineups, I don't think I would have any of those guys in my player pool. If I had to pick one, I would probably pick Ballage, I would think, maybe Booker. But anyhow. Yeah, let's just look at the kickers here, and then we'll wrap her up. So Badgley and Carlson, I don't know, not a whole lot to say about them. Badgley, I suppose, been averaging about 7 points for the year. Carlson, about 10. And my rule with them is I just don't typically on FanDuel play 2 kickers in the same lineup. If I do, it's because I'm doing a stack. And I don't know if you would see four guys from the same team in this. It seems like a relatively even matchup. Maybe in the Raiders' favor, I guess, but from a fantasy standpoint, I mean, there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball that could put up points. So I don't know with those guys. And two, with the kickers, I just usually don't leave a lot of money on the table. They're just somewhat limited in their upside. If you go back the last 5 games with Badgley, his points 9. I think he didn't play 2 games ago, then 3, 11, and 3. So if he gets you 11-point game at 9,000, that's his price tag for both sites. You could easily be in the winning lineup. Carlson, if you go back the last 5 games, 9, 8, 6, 7, and 15. So if you get you that 15-point game, you're gonna that would probably been in the winning lineup. What I typically see winning lineup, it's almost always everyone's in double digits. The only time that's really not the case, it's because like you bought down to one of those real cheap guys and they maybe gave you like 7 or 8 points and you just were loaded with studs with the salary that you had because of that play. But when you're getting guys that are in that like 85 to 10,000 range, those guys typically are going to need to be at a minimum of like 12 or 13 points, it seems like. So kickers could certainly get you there, but like I say, what are the chances of having like those 2 kickers at the same time go off on that to be in the top lineup, which is what I'm personally trying to do. You could certainly cash with them, but I just don't think statistically to have that happen in the same game is very likely. Thus why I don't play them together all that often. And then when I do play them, I usually will stack them with at least 2 other people on their team, whether it be usually quarterback and other skill position, with the idea that whenever there's a touchdown, you end up getting a couple guys that are going to score off of it. So anyhow, that I think pretty much are my thoughts for this game. Like I said earlier, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. That would be awesome. And then I'll end up working on probably, I don't know, maybe it'll come out Thursday, but I'll end up having that Saturday video and then the Sunday Showdown slates Monday, and then the NBA. And just super exciting. A lot coming up here to end the year. So all right, guys, go out, kick some ass Thursday night, and I'll talk to you soon.